The little red light is on. All right.
Number one.
You know, most kids, you start thinking at an early age, as soon as you look in the sky at night and you see stars, and you think, well, what would it be like to be up there?
No matter where we grow up, everybody looks up at the sky and says, what else is out there?
I started saying I wanted to be an astronaut when I was 5 years old, according to my mom.
It was the beginning of our astronauts making their way up to the moon. I remember coming back like, what is this? You know, how do I go do this? This looks like fun.
I looked at what NASA was doing. I was like, I want to be an astronaut. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what happened.
I got into the Navy test pilot school and then started to apply to NASA.
There's like 6,000 people that applied for, 15 slots. And I interviewed 4 times over 12 years.
I applied multiple times over 13 years and interviewed 5 times before I was selected.
Well, I did submit 7 applications along the way, but
I got rejected by NASA 7 times, but the 8th time.
And the 4th time, I got a phone call that said, if you're still interested in being an astronaut, we'd like you to come to Houston.
Finally, it's launch day.
Launching to space, of course, was a momentous experience.
You see that this rocket is a living, breathing beast. You're quite prepared.
Lights off and you feel the rumble, and then you start to move, and that constant smooth acceleration pulling you back in the seat.
And you feel like you're just in a car wreck because the solid rocket boosters light off and they give you a kick in the backside like you were just rear-ended at a stop sign, literally.
There's just nothing subtle or nice about it.
There was the vibration, the pressure, the acceleration, the pressure in your seat.
I distinctly remember the point when I stopped and thought, I did it. I'm here. My goal was to be an astronaut, and now I'm in space.
as a kid, you maybe fantasize about spreading your arms and flying among the clouds and that kind of stuff. That's what we're doing. Floating is very cool.
It's fun to watch new astronauts show up in space too, because they creep around. We would joke like space mice, very timid, very controlled.
Being weightless the first few days is horrible. I mean, it's really neat to see something floating in front of you. It's really horrible to feel like you're going to throw up all the time. And then as you start to get into it, you start to realize that the human's an incredibly adaptive machine, and weightlessness is really, really well suited for us.
You know, pretty soon you're going into a hatchway and you come through and you kind of push off on both sides and you go zipping down the middle and you're turning right at the end. So you reach out, grab a handrail.
But it also brings out your inner 5-year-old, or I say that it is the source of all stupid astronaut tricks.
It's as fun as you think it would be, only better. I think I told my wife that I thought it was a burrito of awesomeness smothered in awesome sauce, because I don't have a very big vocabulary, so I tried to use the biggest, most impactful words I could.
Everybody's a superhero. You're not floating, you're flying.
So the International Space Station, being only 250 miles above Earth, we call it the kind of the proving ground for a lot of science. It is a national orbiting laboratory for the United States, and we do have hundreds of science experiments going on at any time.
We're doing this amazing science up there. It is also absolutely the most wonderful observatory. And certainly for an Earth-facing observatory, the cupola module, this big bay window, you know, that we have facing Earth, is the place to be.
I got visited by 3 space shuttles. Several of the crew members never looked outside the cupola before. I would bring them one at a time to the cupola. Tell them to close their eyes, open up all the windows, the shutters on the windows, and then tell them to open up their eyes.
Cerebrally, I knew that this was going to be a life-changing experience. I knew that the view was going to be amazing.
And I will never forget that sight. The thin blue line of the atmosphere, the curve of the horizon, and that's when it became real. Really, at a gut level, I'm actually in space. We are on orbit. This is not a sim.
This is my eyes looking through glass at Earth from space. It was almost overwhelming.
And so I think it's kind of overload for your brain and processing all of that at once because it just isn't used to that.
You know, it's really hard to describe something like that because it's not just cerebral, it's emotional, it's kind of all-encompassing. My heart was racing. You couldn't wipe the smile off of my face. It was really amazing.
I just was, you know, feeling something as I was staring at this view of the whole thing. And it moved me to tears unknowingly. So.
In that instant, when you're overwhelmed with that vista, when your eyes see nothing but the beauty of the Earth, every single crew member that I brought in there for that exposure cried. It is heart-stopping. It is soul-pounding. It is breathtaking.
One of the most impressive things was watching thunderstorms, you know, storm activity moving around the planet.
You can see its path propagating around, and you have these big flashes all over the place.
You know, this one storm covering all the U.S. and lightning flashing off all over.
No sand up into the atmosphere, crossing the Atlantic Ocean and coming down in Brazil. I mean, that is crazy. If that doesn't change the way you think about the planet, absolutely nothing will.
Definitely look up and see the stars like you have never seen them before. I mean, the Milky Way is just stunning.
There's many things in the cosmos to gaze at it. For example, the Magellanic Clouds. Those show up really bright and vivid because you don't have atmospheric scattering. You can see Andromeda, the spiral galaxy of Andromeda.
Of course, the lights don't flicker. They're steady because they're not coming through the dust and coming through the atmosphere. And then as you really adjust, you start to sense the very subtle colors that are in the stars. A little bit of reddish, a little bit of bluish, blue-white.
Just all the colors and the light come out, you know, in that depth of space as well.
I could all of a sudden detect depth. Now, I couldn't tell you how much, but it's light years, right? And it's like, whoa, I can somehow tell that star is closer than that star. And that was something that knocked my socks off. And I thought, nobody told me about this.
I don't think I had thought before going up there about how many stars you see, you know, the density of stars.
You see so many stars, it becomes hard to pick out constellations. People ask if there's aliens, and I'm like, of course there are aliens. Look at all those stars. There's got to be.
It's just so vast and infinite. I don't know what else to say about that.
I remember using like the 800mm lens and just really zooming into places. And you know, you still can't see people walking around or anything, but you see impacts of things. And
risk when you do that, but it is a bit thrilling.
Spacewalks always seem to be very busy and task-focused events where I got to do this and I got to move over here and do this. And
then you just have to not think about where you are. Just concentrate on getting the job done. What's the big picture?
Rarely did you have a minute where you could just say, just take a minute and enjoy the view. But, there were those minutes every once in a while. And the view from outside the spacecraft, with that full panoramic vision through your helmet visor, was just incredible.
It's a very disturbing view, looking down about 240 miles at the Earth going by at 17,000 miles an hour. It's like, oh boy.
I just watched the Earth going by below me, and I only had this, thin visor separating me from a very unsurvivable atmosphere. And my feet were dangling. I remember, not just through my visor, but looking down and you just see feet and then Earth, and you're holding onto this space station. And it was just incredible. Everything looked so large.
The colors are even more vibrant. And I think also just mentally, psychologically realizing that, there's nothing between the vacuum of space except for this spacesuit and your visor.
I remember thinking that coming out, like that the world would just open up around me. And the view, for some reason, seems bigger than what you have when you're looking through the windows of a spacecraft.
It wasn't like Earth is over there. It wasn't small. It was like it took up your entire, visor and all as far as you could see, and just watching it come over Earth and just how large Earth was from our perspective.
But oh my gosh, you see Earth and you see your glowing station around you, and you realize, okay, I gotta stop looking at this stuff because it becomes a distraction to the work that you're doing out there.
So I always kid those astronauts that don't do the spacewalks. I said, the view from inside here through this flat window is pretty good, The view from outside is just amazing.
And the great thing about living on Space Station, I loved every minute of it. I had a countdown going, but it was, oh no, I only have 2 months left.
All right, one last look at the Earth. This is some good news. The Earth is still beautiful. An Earth in crisis is still an Earth worth returning to.
Life seems extremely busy, and the days start flying by, and before you know it, it's over.
As it drew to a close, I think I was more feeling as though, did you do enough to capture this so that you can share it when you get home? And so that you can light those fires in people as you go around and talk about this and try to, ignite the passion in kids just like I had ignited for me as a kid.
And you're back on the ground, and somebody else is doing the job up there now. It makes you feel like, this is a really big thing that we're a part of, and I'm fortunate to play my part.
It is the fact that going to space and seeing the Earth from that vantage point has a life-changing effect on most of us.
It takes a lot of energy to describe what it's like up there, because there's so much of your emotion built into it.
I think the best way to describe it is that your viewpoint changes, that you can look at the same thing, but it changes the lens through which you see it.
And that acute concrete realization that we belong to Earth and not vice versa, it's kind of a mental shift to see that we just nowhere else we could go.
I think if you're not a conservationist before you go to space, you're at least partly a conservationist when you come back, because when you see how thin that atmosphere is, that protective layer that we have here, you think, wow, we really have to take care of this because it does look so fragile from space.
I think I felt that need to protect it even before leaving it, but it definitely does resonate even more loudly now, having seen it myself and how stunning and beautiful it is. All of those unique ecosystems, everything's connected, the land masses and the ocean masses and the atmosphere, and we are all in it together. We are all down there. And so I think that's the most important thing that I would encourage people to think about, that perspective.
I think you get a sense of preservation of I don't want this to go away, and I don't want to be the only one to see this. And there are so many people that need to see it, but only a handful will in this lifetime.
You know, I remember coming back from all my missions with that sense that, you know, we're all connected, we're all people. And I thought about, why is it that we do have conflicts? What is that separates us from one another?
If you could get 7 billion people to go up there and look down for just even 30 seconds, you would change them, all of them, forever. They wouldn't all come back and be friends. They wouldn't all come back and tear down border walls and things like that. But you would change all of them, and you would change them all for the better, and they would have a different view of the planet.
I think if people that can lift their eyes up and see the bigger picture, whether it's from orbit or even just understanding the different sides, maybe spending more time listening, you know, rather than shouting.
And that's what I want people to find. I absolutely found that in the experience I had in space, in the simple facts of us living on a planet and all being Earthlings, and the only border that matters is that thin blue line.